Hey, welcome to the Lockdown Sessions, presented to you by Wrestling Travel and our friends over at True Heel Heat Podcast. Please check them out. Today, it is so awesome that we get to welcome Tarver to our show. How are you doing today?
I'm great, man. I'm good. I'm blessed. How are you?
Very good. We are just absolutely ecstatic to have you on here for a few minutes and talk a little wrestling.
Awesome.
Can you, we're out of the United Kingdom, and I'm going to assume that just in case everybody doesn't know who we are and who you are, can you start me off? How long have you been in the business?
16 years. Yeah, 16 years. It's funny because people are pretty surprised. Even people in the business, they're surprised when I tell them how long I've actually been in the business, how long I've been working. And like, really? I'm like, yeah, 16 years. I've been in the business, taking bumps, wrestling, all of that.
So who broke you in, or who did you train with?
So I'm from Ohio. I started in Ohio, in Akron, Ohio, a very, very small group called UWC. They don't exist anymore. But the promoter was a guy named John Potot. And what was I doing? I was still playing semi-pro football, and I was a battle rapper. I was hosting battle raps, like 8 Mile, literally just like 8 Mile. So funny. But one of the bouncers knew me from playing semi-pro football in Akron, Ohio, and so he was like, "Yo, you need to come and check out your wrestling. You get on the mic. You're an athlete. You can rap. You should try it." I'm like, and I was a wrestling fan. Watched wrestling my whole life. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that. So not that long after that, 2 years later, I had gotten divorced, and I was like, you know what? Why not? I'll try it. So I remember seeing they had local access television. It would come on Saturday mornings in Northeast Ohio, and I remember seeing their champion. It was a friend of mine. His name was the Purple Hooter. That was his wrestling name. It was his gimmick. And great guy though, a heck of a worker. And he was like 180 pounds smaller guy, and I remember looking at him thinking, I'd kill this guy. I didn't know any better. So I called the number and everything, and I finally got in touch with John, and he invited me to come to one of their shows. So I got there early, and I walk in and I see a bunch of guys in the ring, kind of going over things, and I got intimidated. Like, and I don't really, get intimidated or nervous, but I looked up and I saw it. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. That looks harder than I thought it was, because I saw them actually working together. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I thought this was just like a fight, and yeah. And then 3 hours later, I had my first match, first day in the biz.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I had my first match.
Yeah, it is intimidating. Everybody always, even if you're a fan, you kind of think. I remember my first day training. You kind of have in the back of your head that this is not on the up and up. And then I get in there with all these big guys, and I go, man, I hope it's not on the up and up, or I'm going to get killed here, because I was nervous.
Yeah.
You're nervous as heck. I'm going to back up on the football thing. What position did you play football?
A few, but primarily middle linebacker, and believe it or not, running back.
Yeah, I was going to guess running back, just for some reason.
I'm pretty big for a running back. I'm 6'3". And at the time, when I was still playing football, I was about 230 at my heaviest. I was a pretty big running back, but I was really fast once upon a time. I was a sprinter. So that was always my advantage. But it just worked out better for me to play linebacker than play running back. But I had the most success playing linebacker.
Did you play college ball?
Basketball, not football.
Basketball, okay.
Yeah. I went for 1 year to a branch of Ohio University in Zanesville, Ohio, and the plan was to go from there to a Division I school to play football, to attain a scholarship to play football. I had to get my grades up, and that didn't happen because I ended up having my first child, who is now 24 years old. So I ended up dropping out of school and giving up a scholarship to take care of my child.
That's all kinds of stuff I didn't know. Who is your NFL team?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Now we all know.
We all know, yeah. My NFL team, it's crazy. I'm not a big NFL fan, but ironically enough, more stuff that not many people know. My father actually played in the NFL. He played for the Denver Broncos for a season. So growing up, I was a Broncos fan. Growing up, really because of that, but being from originally from Cleveland, we were always Browns fans. It's just Ohio natives are pretty loyal to their Ohio teams, no matter how much they stink. Except for those few Michigan Wolverines and Pittsburgh Steelers fans who we disown. Other than that, yeah,
Yeah,
I
good.
was always, yeah.
Always Browns. I got good friends at Columbus that are
Oh yeah,
diehard
big
Brown
Ohio
fans.
State fan. Yeah, I'm a big Ohio State fan, big Buckeyes fan.
That's darn near when I've been there, and I'm an outsider from Wisconsin, but that
Yeah,
is darn near the football team over the Bengals, over the Browns. Because
yes, in
obviously
Ohio. Mhm.
yeah. So
That's the team.
what a great fan base. So meanwhile, back at this pro wrestling story, what?
Yeah,
How do you're in? You have your match right away.
yeah.
How long before you get tapped on the shoulder for Florida Championship Wrestling, or do you have a tryout, or how does that come about?
Well, that's another. My whole like story is insane. So like I did indies in Ohio and kind of the Midwest, as far west as Wisconsin and as far east as Jersey, and I think maybe it's around Tennessee and West Virginia is about as far south as I went for about 4 years. And a friend of mine had called me. It was a guy I knew who had done a lot of extra work for WWE at the time. Guy from Pennsylvania named John McChesney. Been working for years. Great worker, great guy too. And every time I would see him, he's like, "Yo, you need to go to bench. You need to try out." And I'm like, okay, like I'd like to, but I don't know how. It seemed impossible. Now everyone's getting signed. Back then, no one got signed, and then if they did, they were hidden in OVW for 10,000 years, But so he had told me that they were there was a storyline between Chris Jericho and I want to say JBL at the time. This was 2007. And they needed extras at a SmackDown taping in New York, in Rochester, New York. And they said I should just go up there, and I wasn't booked or anything. So I said, all right, I'll give it a try, but I had started seeing guys that I knew that I was working with get extra talent bookings, get shots. Like for example, Johnny Gargano, I know him from Cleveland, and he did an extra. He got booked as an extra and actually got a spot with MVP. He was dressed up as like an elf or something or whatever, but he got a match with MVP, and then there was a few other guys that I knew. Rainbow, who's in the War Raiders or the Raiders, the Viking Raiders. Yeah, I know him from Cleveland. EC3, I know him from Cleveland. Shane Taylor from ROH, I know him from Cleveland. Like, I mean, the list goes on, guys that I knew, and we all kind of came up around the same time in the same area, basically. So I drive up to Rochester, New York, and walk in, not booked, they didn't know who I was. Sign my waivers, walk right to the ring, go to the extra talent locker room. And when I got there, so funny, when I got there, I bumped into Sterling, what is his name? Corey Graves. I knew him before WWE. It was Sterling James Keenan. His name is Matt, but so I bumped into Corey Graves, and he was also booked as an extra talent. So was Brody Lee, who was also there that night. Colin Delaney was there that night. That was the night he got signed. And there were so many guys, man. There was another guy too. What's the guy's name? He's married to the bunny girl. Bunny something. They're both in AEW. They did the bunny rabbit gimmick, the dark bunny rabbit gimmick. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. The name escapes me.
I can't think of his name, but he was also there that night. Him, and like there was a lot of talent, a lot of guys that ended up getting signed and making it to TV that night. I mean, there was even more guys. I just can't remember who. So I ended up in the ring with another guy named Mike Tolar, who was from Cleveland. He actually went to high school with Nick Nemeth, Dolph Lundgren, Dolph Ziggler, Dolph Ziggler. They actually knew each other from high school, And so we end up in the ring together, and Jamie Noble pulls me out of the ring. It's like, "Hey, you come here," because that's how he actually talks. And then one of the talent relation guys, hauls me off to meet John Laurinaitis. And I'm sitting in this hallway, and it was freezing cold in December 19th, 2007. I'll never forget it. And I'm sitting there, I'm nervous, like I'm marking out like crazy. I'm like hyperventilating, couldn't catch my breath. So I look up, and I'm sitting right like in this hallway, and the door's open, and Johnny's sitting there on the phone, but the door's cracked, but I could see him and I could hear him, but I couldn't really, I look up, and the Undertaker's walking down the hallway. This is my first time meeting Taker. So I'm like, what? Like I'm marking out crazy, like what? So like I stand up, dust myself off, stop him dead in his tracks, shake his hand, give him a firm handshake, look him dead in the eyes. I said, "Sir, it's an honor to meet you." And he goes, "Oh, it's nice to meet you too, kid." Like I could, and I was groomed, you meet guys, especially like Taker, you shake their hand and So, I sat down, I was like, "Oh, I just met the Undertaker. What the?" So like 5 minutes later, Batista comes walking down the hallway. And I'm like, what? I'm marking out even more. I'm like, "This is freaking Batista." I stand up, do the exact same thing. And I'm like, "How you doing, sir? It's nice to meet you." And same thing. He's like, "Yeah, nice to meet you too, kid." So then he walks in, talks to Johnny. And once I got there, I realized that was a common practice. People would go into the talent relations office, talk to Johnny about whatever, and go on about their business, because I had to do it a lot too. The third person, the final person who walks down this hallway is Vince McMahon himself. I crapped a pineapple. Man, let me tell you something. When you like meeting him in person for the first time, and pretty much every time after, it's the same, basically. It's like shaking hands with a megalodon. Like it's crazy. Nice guy though, and shook his hand, whatever, looked at it, and he respects that. He likes that. And when you're not afraid of him, you don't act scared of him. And from what I gather, and right after that, I went in, sat down with Johnny, and sent me to OVW, and the rest is history.
Vince McMahon give you a, "Hey, pal"?
No, it was brief. It was, "Hey, pal." Yeah. It was brief. He just basically said, "Kid." And, they were always like, "Kid." If you don't know you, they call you kid. They're like, "Hey, kid." Which I'm like, "Nice to meet you, kid." I'm like, "Thank you, sir." And I sit down, and, yeah, it was crazy.
I'll talk to a lot of people that are on the indie scene, and everybody, "Oh, don't mark out," we're just on the same level. But I'm always been, listen,
Yeah.
we're not going to be in this business if we weren't marks. And I still
Right. Right.
I got to meet Jimmy Hart a couple times in
Oh,
2015, and just
such
my
a nice
childhood.
guy.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
childhood just comes in front of me, and
Right.
yeah, he is great. I
Yeah.
can't say enough good things about him, true. But
Yeah.
there hasn't been too many people
Right.
that were part of my childhood growing up that haven't been super nice. I was nervous to meet Ric Flair because I had
Wow.
heard Ric
Yeah.
Flair stories, and
Yeah.
for the brief time that I got to speak with Ric Flair, he couldn't have been anything but
Right.
nicer to me. And I was, it was one of those, I don't want to meet my heroes type thing, because I've heard
Yeah.
stories,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I've had
if you
bad
meet them, and
experiences, but I've had good experiences.
yeah, it's very, very different. Yeah, and I could imagine that could have turned out any which way, but I was of the
Right.
mentality of, we're in the same room, I'm saying hi, and I'm trying to get away before anything bad happens, trying to keep
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
back it up, speaking of my childhood, growing up watching pro wrestling, who catches your eye? Who are some of the guys you looked up
Man.
to when you were younger?
So it's funny. I was a big NWA WCW guy growing up, and I didn't catch on to WWF or WWE until they merged with WCW or bought WCW basically. And then I had to really learn the WWF guys. Like I knew about Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, the big man, Yokozuna, Ricky, Superfly, Jimmy Snuka, guys like that, and even more. But I had to get to know Triple H's, Stone Cold Steve Austin's, The Rocks, and I knew who they were. I just didn't watch them. I was all into NWO and Goldberg and DDP and Jericho and Benoit and Dean Malenko, those guys, Rey Mysterio. Like I was into those guys, and Flair and Dusty Rhodes, of course. You know, Hands of Stone, Randy Garvin. Like in world class, I watched a lot of world class growing up too, which is crazy because in Northeast Ohio we got world class. I don't know how we got it, but it showed. And I would watch a lot of world with the Von Erichs. I watched a lot of the Von Erichs growing up, which is so crazy. But then, yeah, about 2001-ish, I started watching WWE because, you know, and then TNA came to be, and I want to say, 2002. And I remember ordering every one of those $8 pay-per-views on Wednesday nights so I can see all my old WCW guys. I'll never forget that.
Yeah, they had that pay-per-view model. Speaking of world
Yeah.
class, I recently discovered, you know, I've had the WWE network for a while, but I
Mm,
got a chance to go back and start watching. I think it starts at like 1982. But
wow.
man, a lot of
Wow.
going through that. It still entertains. Yeah, I know I'm old, but
Right.
those programs hold up. But still entertaining. I love world class.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, indeed.
My favorite is AWA. I'm a Midwest guy over here, Wisconsin,
Wow.
Minnesota.
Right.
So
Right.
I love watching that. There's WWE owns it, but there's not a whole lot out there. So I'm always looking to be. If anybody is an old school tape trader, I want to catch more AWA stuff. But
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I want to talk about. So when you eventually make it down to Florida,
Yeah.
just and I'm not sure this is my journalistic lack of showing. You get a chance to
Okay.
work with Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah. What an experience. So here's how this comes to be. So we're doing these Tuesday night shows at this bar in Newport Richey called oh my God, every time I try to think of the name of the bar, it escapes me. Bourbon Street Lounge, this little country bar, you know, in Newport Richey. Is a little country town or whatever. And but that was and FCW was new-ish at the time. Like we were, you know, I was part of the last end of the first class of FCW because that was when they were transitioning from OVW and Deep South, and they combined them to make FCW. So I was like one of the kind of last signees of that first class, so to speak. So I get down there. My whole WWE career was just interesting. My first week on the job was on WrestleMania, literally, with Mayweather. That was my first. I flew down March 25th, 2008, to move to Tampa. Never been to Florida a day in my life. Which was a Tuesday. That Sunday, which was the 28th, or not 28th, or whatever day that was, but that Sunday was Mania 24. So the following Tuesday, we're back at the Bourbon Street, and I'm watching Alicia Fox walk to the ring, and I'm looking at the reactions that she was getting, and I was like, oh, I could get so much heat. I'm a promo guy. That was always my thing. I was a big promo guy. So I'm sitting next to Steve Kern, and this was right before Dusty Rhodes was revealed that he'll be working with us. And him and Dr. Tom Pritchard was kind of in the control area or whatever, and they were communicating through text, you know, who's coming out next and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm sitting next to Steve, and I see Alicia Fox come out. I'm like, well, I can get so much heat from this crowd, you know, country crowd, you know. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can get, you know, cheap heat, you know. So, and he looks at me and goes, really? I said, oh, yeah, it will be easy. I have meat out of the palm of my hands. I'm so confident, right? He goes, you sure about that, huh? I said, oh, yeah, I'm sure. He goes, okay. Then he starts texting on his phone. I wasn't paying any attention. Then he looks next to me and goes, all right, you're up next. I'm sorry. And I'm looking like, I'm sorry, I'm up when? I'm doing what? He goes, you're up next. He said, you can get heat, right? I said, yeah. He said, well, you're up next. So he's like, okay. I said, what do you want me to do? He said, just walk to the ring and show me what you can do. So you said you can get heat. Well, little did he know that I used to do that. So I worked with a group called PWU, Pro Wrestling Unplugged, in Philly in 2007, actually right before I signed. And that was Ty Gordon, Blue Meanie, and someone else, like a lot of the old ECW guys. And it was at the arena. And my debut there was I walked out to the ring and called out Sandman. And, you know, but I literally just walked out to the ring in the middle of a match, grabbed the mic, and just cut this crazy. Actually, the promo that I cut was the Shane Douglas promo when he threw down the NWA title.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually cut that promo like I took the battle rap mentality into my promos. So it was like a tribute. I was paying tribute to that promo, and I figured, how risky would that be to cut that promo the very same place where he cut that promo and introduce myself that way, and it went over huge. Like all of the guys that were there, they loved it, and I got to work with Scorpio, Tuco Scorpio, and Sandman, and Gary Wolf, Pitbull Gary Wolf, and Blue Meanie. Like a lot of these, they were just so cool, man, super cool. So fast forward back to FCW that night, I'm thinking to myself, all right, first I was nervous. I'm like, I've done this before. He doesn't know that I'm about to kill this. So I walk up to the ring. The ring announcer didn't even know. It was almost kind of a rib on him. The crowd was looking at me like, what? Who is this guy? So I walk up, I snatch the mic from the ring announcer. He didn't even know I was even talent, and proceed to cut the meanest cheap heat. I'm calling these guys rednecks and blah, blah, cheap heat, stupid stuff. I'm getting so many boos. They were throwing stuff at me. It was like the root, like it was just so much heat. And then I give the guy the mic and walk back to Steve Kerr, and he's looking at me like, "Whoa, you really can get heat." So then I was allowed to go in the locker room because I wasn't allowed in the locker room yet. And from that point on, we would every night, every Tuesday night, I would just randomly pick a spot and walk out, snatch the mic, and just cut a promo and just heel out on the crowd. And they got to a point where the crowd, like when we'd be there setting up the ring, Mark's coming early and be like, "You gonna come to the ring tonight? You gonna cut a promo tonight?" Like they were expecting it. Then it started getting over. So I was like, huh, all right. And I'm learning, the 4 years on Indies, I learned a lot. But when I got there, I realized I had so much more to learn. That got Dusty's attention. And then I think we had to write an explanation about ourselves or something, kind of like a little paragraph. They were real big on making us do written homework, which I thought was weird, but I did it. Like Jim Ross was real big on making us do written homework. Like literally on Monday Night Raw, we had to do homework. It's crazy, but which is thorough. I get it, But I like wrote my little paper introducing myself, and I said something like, I'm not anybody's son in the business. My father was a pro football player, blah blah. And, I'm just kind of, really healing out on the paper because I'm like, well, if I'm going to do this, I got to go all out. I'm going to stay in character. Dusty loved it. I was so scared that I offended him. He ended up loving it. And then he had this invite. He started doing an invite-only promo class, and this is when he first started working with us. But this is like maybe March, April, May-ish, and I wasn't a part of the class, but I just walked in. There was only like 6 people. It was like Sean Spears. Trying to think of people who would still be around, who's still working now. Sean Spears was there. It might be the only person I can think of. Coco Cabana was in the promo class. I might be able to think of a few other people, but I know they were also there. And I just went in and started doing promos. And then I introduced myself to the class by doing a Ike and Tina Turner style promo with Alicia Fox. And I told her, just follow me, and we would like on the fly, she would just talk and be innocent, and I would just interrupt her and just be this overbearing, whatever. And that dynamic, we were like a couple, so to speak. Dusty loved it because it was like cinematic. From that point on, he just pulled me aside and he was like, "I'm your mentor, daddy. I'm your mentor, okay?" Like it was so crazy, man. I mean, what an honor, you know what I mean? And then from that point on, I ended up like writing promos for guys to present to Dusty, and it just, oh man, working with him, I've never felt so confident. And like he has a way of making you feel like $1 billion. Like Dusty. And I've talked to a lot of old schoolers. People might have had bad experiences. People go through changes in their careers if you've been in the business as long as he has. But the time I spent with Dusty, man, I'm getting emotional. But like it was amazing, man. It was amazing.
Definitely gone, like so many others, gone too soon. But what an honor it must have been now looking back that you got to spend that time with him
My
and getting
gosh.
that love, that rub back
Yeah.
from him. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Let me back up because one of the things I had written down is I wanted to ask any stories about the Floyd Money Mayweather. But are you telling me
Oh,
you kind of came into that WrestleMania as kind of an extra? Like that was one of
I
your
wouldn't.
first on the WrestleMania 24, the Ric Flair retirement. Like That had to be
Yes,
scary,
it
exciting, but
was
scary.
so overwhelming. It was crazy. So I was under contract. Like they had signed me. My contract was official March 6th, 2008, which was 2 days before my birthday. And I moved there March. I can't. I keep saying 25th. I think it was the 23rd or something like that. But anyway, I moved there the Tuesday of WrestleMania that week. So that was my first thing. Period. Was Wrestle freaking Mania. And I didn't take it for granted. I just kind of, I think it was great to be introduced, to be baptized in that first, because it made me hungry for it. Like it made me want more of it. Then, some guys I know who've never seen WrestleMania, never been, you know, but to be backstage and just be in it and around it and just, oh my God. Like, I mean, I can think of one story. I was actually, it's not a Floyd Mayweather story, but like I was back on the outside of the arena or stadium, because it was at the Orange Bowl or Citrus Bowl in Orlando. I was talking to Umaga and Rey Mysterio, and this is like one of my first ever conversations with him, and I'm in tears, and I'm like, pyros flying all over the place, and we're kind of outside, and my match wasn't up yet, and I'm just talking to him, and they're kind of, I'm introducing myself, and we're talking, and I'm in tears, and they're like, okay, and I was telling them like I was homeless before I signed this contract. Like before I moved to Florida, I was homeless literally a week prior to being on WrestleMania. And they were like floored by that, and I was just crying. I was like, I can't tell you guys how much this means to me, just to even be talking to you guys. Like I know this sounds crazy, but this is like more than a dream for me. Like I was homeless, like I got kids, I was divorced, like I couldn't take care of my kids. Like I almost killed myself. Like it was just, and they were like, okay, like we get it that you appreciate this, and I could just tell that it made an impression on them, and I'm glad I got to have that kind of conversation with Umaga, before he passed, and getting to know Ray, who was one of the nicest people you ever meet in your entire life. But Floyd, Floyd was a ball of energy, and he was excited, man. I remember we were going over the match at the hotel, and Hunter was there, and Show, and Vince, and all, and Johnny, like everyone, right? And Floyd is like trying to tell us how to throw chair shots, and we're like, okay, and we're looking at Hunter, and he's just kind of we're like, all right, we'll shut up, So we're listening to him, and Floyd's giving us wrestling advice, and we're like, all right, we'll shut up. Like I was smart enough to know, shut up, let him talk, and it was fun. He was excited, and when I look back on it, I appreciate how excited he was about it. Being that he's a boxing legend, but he's in pro wrestling. I appreciated how excited he was. And I thought that was just a wonderfully done match with him and Big Show, the David Goliath thing, and just and somehow Big Show being the baby face, like the way they told that story was just spectacular. Big Show was just amazing, amazing.
Yeah, that's one of the matches that I don't think of too much, but when you think back on it, how
Yeah,
cool that was, and
yeah,
obviously Mayweather, a little pro wrestling fan in him, if nothing else, um,
right, right.
that's cool. And like you said, that's a legend. You're
Ugh.
um, when are you ever going to get a chance like that again to
Right.
be, and
And when we
especially that
hung
you're
out with him all day long, man, we were in this limo with him, like his entourage. They wanted us. Oh yeah, we were there. The soon as it's so crazy, we got so much heat too. Oh my God, we got so much heat. As soon as we got there, like John, the town relations hit us and they said, "You guys report to this room." We get there, they give us all of these just Floyd Mayweather, gear and all of that, and they're like, they told us where to go. We're being driven around in limos, hanging in this entourage all day, like treated like superstars. And I'm like, what? But they, you get it. They wanted us to be it to be real as possible, So if anyone saw him, they saw us. So when we walked into the ring, it was real as opposed to, because I guess the story I was getting is that his real entourage was with him, which, naturally I would expect, but it was causing problems at the TV tapings because they don't know it's a work. So the boys and his entourage are having friction. And so when they hired myself and the three other guys, they figured, all right, well, let's get some of our guys, developmental guys that no one knows, to be his entourage. So at least we have guys that we know understand that it's a work. Plus, no one knows who they are, and we can pay them $500 and not actually pay them. But anyway, it was amazing. It was amazing. I one of my favorite lifetime memories.
Right. I can't imagine, and literally, I can't imagine when you're telling me that story about, hey, I literally homeless and going through all kinds of
Oh yeah,
trouble, and then
yeah,
the next week you're in a limo with
yeah.
Floyd Money Mayweather,
Floyd Mayweather,
with all
right?
your wrestling here. I mean, I can't imagine what a pinch me moment that is. Holy cow!
Yeah, it's
So,
surreal, man.
and I want to be really respectful of your time, but what happens is I
You're
always
good.
end up loving talking wrestling. How does the next thing, the Nexus? How does that come about? How you're involved in that?
Oh,
That's a very cool storyline.
yeah. I mean, there's no shortage of excitement with my WWE tenure. Let me tell you. So we're we're at FCW, and this is late 2009, mid late 2009. So they come down, talent relations, all their producers. They would periodically come to developmental, and Steve and Doc, Norman Smiley, Joey Matthews, they were the coaches, Kidman, and Dusty. They would set up matches with the top, most ready developmental prospects. So we always had to have our gear on us, and literally do the matches in our full TV gear and everything, and the rest of the talent would sit around the ring and act like a crowd, and then all of the producers would sit and watch the match, which you're familiar with. I'm sure you know. Um, well, a couple times we would do that, and they would look at certain people, and then Johnny kind of hit us with, there's going to be a shift, so they're going to discontinue ECW and start this new show. They hadn't come up with a name, or hadn't secured the name NXT yet, because they had to buy it, I guess, from a company in Europe or something. I can't remember. I thought I heard, um, but the copyright, that is. So they described it to us as a tough enough like reality show, and we were like, oh. But I was supposed to actually debut on ECW, and I couldn't get my passport, or something. Like, there was something going on with my passport. I couldn't get my passport, but I was supposed to debut, or was being looked at to debut on ECW right before NXT, like literally almost maybe 2 months before they even hold, well, more than that. But it was shortly before the NXT concept was born and pushed to fruition. But yeah, I was supposed to debut on NXT. Actually, I remember me and Lance Hoyt were having these like killer knockdown, drag out matches for the producers. Where we just beat the heck out of each other, and then he debuted right afterwards. That's my boy. That's my brother. And so we all, they tell us, and then right before we debut, they send us to John Cena's personal gym in Florida, and we train with his strength and conditioning trainer. He gets us all beefed up and jacked up and all of that, and then we debut on NXT. And man, wow! Like, life immediately changed. It was wow. Let me tell you. Like, I didn't have a Twitter account. I think I had a Facebook account. I'm not even sure. I had a MySpace account at the time, and there was no Instagram, none of that back in 2010, and immediately I had like 80 some thousand followers on Twitter. Like, what does this even mean? Now, you know, I get it now, but yeah, it was nuts. Like, just immediately just famous in a matter of minutes. And I couldn't walk into a Walmart to save my life. Publix, or Target, yeah. Walmart, oh my goodness, this is where all the wrestling fans go. Couldn't walk into Walmart and say, oh my goodness. But yeah, it was what a ride that was, man. It was amazing. Amazing.
I can't imagine your phone blowing up on Twitter. I had a brief moment where I gained like 400 followers in a matter of minutes
Nice.
because of somebody put me over on a radio show in London, and
Oh,
I'm
that's
driving and
cool.
my phone goes. I'm like, well, this must what it feels like to be cool,
Yeah.
I can't imagine 80 some thousand followers. When the Nexus does the attack on Monday Night Raw,
Yeah.
that had to be even a bigger. Here you're getting bigger and bigger, and that's a huge moment that no matter where you
Yeah.
at, you kind of remember that. That had to be
Yeah.
a huge thing for you.
It was amazing, man. It was. And South Beach, Miami is one of my favorite places in the world. I had just the night before, I had proposed to my ex-wife, which and it happened to be my oldest daughter's birthday, like the night before the debut. Like it was just such an amazing weekend. It was confusing because the week prior, season 1 ended, and we were all told, be in Miami, Florida. Send us travel. We're all like, okay, and we were kind of got the hint that there was something big going on, but we didn't know. We didn't even like they were. It's hard to keep a secret there, but they managed to do it. We get to the arena, and we know season 2 is debuting the next night in Tampa on Tuesday. So we get to the arena, and we knew Wade Barrett is going to have a segment on Raw, whatever. And we're thinking, all right, maybe they'll bring us all out just to wave goodbye one more time. I don't know. Yeah. And they wait till middle of the day. We're all, right before rehearsals, and we're all just kind of hanging around. And they made sure we were all close to each other. So then they pull us into this office, and it's Vince, it's Johnny, it's I think Cena was there, like a bunch of producers, and they're like, and Johnny's like, I can always say Johnny. I don't remember exactly who it was, but they hand us the armbands, and we're looking at the armbands like, what are these? Like, what is this? So then Vince proceeds to explain the Nexus, and they didn't have the name yet, actually. So we didn't. I don't know when they came up with the name, but they didn't actually even start calling us that until about 3 or 4 weeks in. But so he's explaining, he's like, this is what you're going to do tonight. Destroy everything. If you don't, kiss your jobs goodbye. This has to be the realest thing that we've ever done and that you've ever done. Like, break everything. Break the cameras, break this. And these are like $10,000 cameras. They're not cheap. And we're like, are you sure, Mr. McMahon? He's like, break everything. He said, hit everyone, break everything. Like, don't hold back, don't lighten up. Just stiff everything, break everything. Everyone's getting bonuses, whatever, whatever. We're like, okay. And then like, do not tell anyone. Don't say a word to anybody. Like, if anyone comes back to us and tells us that you told them, then gimmicks off, everyone's fired. And so people are going to test you. They're going to come up and ask you. And we're like, sure, all right. We're all kind of looking at each other confused, like, what, how, when, and they kind of gave us the clue to when it was going to happen, but they kept us in the dark as to when. Man, I remember Edge coming up to me. I remember Matt Hardy coming up to me a couple of times, like, so what are you guys doing tonight? We're like, we don't know. And we're looking at each other like, holy crap, they're really testing us. It was amazing. So we finally get the Iggy that, okay, we're going on. And this is like, mind you, the show's almost over, and it's the middle of the Cena and Punk match. And I'll never forget, because that's when they were doing the special guest host gimmicks, and they had the A-Team cast, the movie for the A-Team. Rampage Jackson was there, and that's like one of my favorite, guys ever. Like, I patterned a lot of my in-ring stuff after him, and I got to meet him. And number one, I was disappointed with how small he is. I was like, what? Like twice. I'm like, what? Like, I thought he was huge. He's a little guy. He's a beast, though. But it's like, I don't know, 10:45. Like, we're going off air in 15 minutes, and we're all oiling up and doing our curls with the bands, and people are walking by with their roller bags. Like, they told us to stay. We're not allowed to leave. What are you guys doing? We're like, photo shoot. Yeah, photo shoot. That works. And so they position us around the ring in different places, and we walk out. Oh, the rest is history.
That was a moment. If you can't, I understand, but can you give me and some of the fans any insight on the Daniel Bryan necktie incident?
To be honest with you, it caught us all by surprise, the rest of us meaning, because I didn't know he did it, obviously, because I was in the heat of the moment.
Right.
Until, when did I even hear about it? I want to say the next day. No, because he was there in Tampa. So I think the next week he wasn't there. And within like 2 weeks after, we had kind of got the story, like, wait, they fired him? Like, what? They fired him? And that was Vince's, pet project. That was his boy. And we were like, they fired Bryan? And then we started getting the story about the necktie thing. And we're like, what? Like, they crucified people, had bloody matches, bra and panty matches, and fire him because he choked the guy with a tie. Like, so So we're like, all right, whatever. And then we had our suspicions that it was a work. We never. I know I never got any disclosure on that, but we didn't actually know that it was going to be him at SummerSlam until that day. Even though we kind of had a clue, but no one actually ever told us. But we didn't literally find out until that day, literally. And then of course we had to, kayfabe it. But yeah, it was. I mean, it was what I know, man. I don't know if it was a work or not. It it worked out well.
Yeah, it did. Well, that's what I love about pro wrestling. The fan in me is always
Yeah,
like, I love if I go back to Slammiversary that Impact just had, there's
yeah,
rumors of all these guys that left WWE, but they
yeah,
did a really good job. And I did a good job staying away from social media, but I was
yeah,
surprised, and I love being surprised. And if I
yeah.
take myself back to that era with the Nexus and
Right.
everything, it was surprise, surprise, surprise for me, and I loved every second of it.
Yeah, that's great for Impact too, man. All of those guys like that felt like wrestling again. Seeing all those guys pop up there, and it almost made me want to watch it. Almost made me want to watch it, but no, that felt like the wrestling I remember again. Guys popping up in excitement, and it's just missing the crowds. Oh man, we're just missing the crowds.
Yeah, we
Ugh.
need them back for sure.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
that's the other thing I was going to touch on. If you could inspire me for a second, the
sure.
lack of the crowd
Yeah,
really shows that not only just in wrestling, but now that
yeah.
baseball's back,
Right.
NBA is coming back tonight, I believe. Um,
Yes.
but the lack of crowd, it really shows, especially in wrestling and in sports, how important that crowd is.
Uh huh.
And we know this as wrestling, like we got to feed off that crowd. What
Yeah.
has been your, have you even got a chance to watch? It's tough to watch without a crowd, but I went
Yes.
and watched some of these cinematic matches, and
Right.
I'm on the fence. At one point,
Yeah.
I was like, hey, at least we have some wrestling
Right.
and we're not canceled like baseball and basketball is at the same point. But the traditionalist in me, I'm having a hard time with them. Have you gotten a chance to watch any of these?
Not really. I did see bits and pieces of the Undertaker AJ Styles match, and my only issue with that, as much as I love both of them, is that it's kind of a what's the point to put those two together? Honestly, like if anything, it should have been Sting. That would have got my interest more. But other than that, like I love both of them. They're two of my favorites. I love the fact that WWE is being creative in their infinite inability to be creative, dare I say, because they really struggle with that. But I saw that and I'm like, okay, all right, I'll give it. I appreciate that because I didn't expect that. I'll give it a try. I'll watch it. And my only issue with those matches is that they're too pro wrestling-y. And what I mean by that is, if we're supposed to not see this as a wrestling match, then it needs to be dressed up as a fight. No wrestling moves, or at the very least, wrestling moves, no wrestling talk. Literally carry yourself like you're in an actual bar fight, especially if you're not. And then on top of that, like, don't wear your wrestling gear, and I just, so that's the thing. And even with, okay, in the matches, it's been hard to watch the matches with no crowd. To be honest with you, AEW has been the easiest thing for me to watch. I don't know why. Like, I don't watch wrestling, but I've watched a little bit of AEW, but even that gets tiresome quickly because I feel like I'm just watching a super indie show. And not, no disrespect, because I love AEW and I love the fact that they're successful. It's just, I just look at, I get that it's supposed to be an alternative, something different, but if you got the New York Giants, you can't have the, I don't know, Temple Owls football team try to compete with the Green Bay Packers, because that's what it feels like to some degree. Um, with that being said, I see a lot of the matches with no audience, and I get you're supposed to work like there's 10,000 people, even if there's 10 people, but there are still different ways to address and win over and work those 10 people, because I have certainly had matches in front of 10 people, plenty. And I didn't oversell. I didn't talk a lot. I didn't do a lot of, I made my matches extremely deliberate. I didn't do any crowd, crowd interaction. I focused, laser focused on my opponent and made it feel like, and sometimes you got to stiffen up a little bit. Like you have to, because they can hear everything, everything. So you got to be able to communicate without communicating, and if you're used to having the kind of matches where everything is choreographed, then it tells on itself. Where if in front of 20,000 people you can get away with 1,000,001 dives and enchigiris and super kicks, but there's 20 people now, and you don't get the same reaction from 1,000,001 dives. Well, then you need to tighten that up a little bit and tell more of a story based on the characters or body parts or injuries, or just more psychological than just relying on things that get big pops, because now there's no one to give you that big pop. What do I know? But it's something that sticks out to me.
110% agree.
Yeah.
I'm of the same old school mentality. And just disclaimer for anybody watching this, you and I, neither one of us are crapping on AEW or anything, because it's all respect.
No.
And it's a great, because there's more places to work. It's just when
Thank God for that. Yes.
Yeah. When you get a chance to kind of voice your opinion, I know wrestling has to evolve. Stuff has to change with the times. When you get a couple older gentlemen like ourselves, we may have an opinion, but I'm with you. I love it all the way.
Yeah.
I love the organizations. It's just sometimes the matches where I wish we do something better. I like psychology and storytelling, and you hit the nail on the head. Without the crowd there, now you got to focus back on this. So, awesome. I love hearing that from somebody else. As we kind of wrap it up here, one of the questions I like to ask occasionally, and I feel like I'm going to get probably a plethora of answers from you, but can you narrow down, like, what is some of the best advice that you've gotten in pro wrestling?
Wow. So, Dusty and Vince always gave me good advice. Randy Orton always kind of gave me good advice. Believe it or not, Punk actually gave me the best advice, and it was really, really simple. It wasn't necessarily advice, but I took it that way. And we were in the locker room. This is right before WrestleMania, the one that was in Arizona, which would have been 26.
Maybe.
So he asked, and he was like, do you have a match? I was like, and I'm thinking to myself, why would I have a match? Who am I? Why would I have a match? And he was dead serious. He was like, do you have a match? I said, no. I said, no, of course not. He said, did you ask for one? And I'm just looking at him like he's crazy. I'm like, why would I do that? Like, they would never, me? He said, why don't you ask for one? And I said, okay, all right, I'll think about it. Yeah, okay. And he was dead serious. He walked out. And it took me a minute to really process what he was saying and why he said it, and then consider who it was coming from. And I looked at it like this, and I get it now. He broke down some doors being different from the traditional archetype of a pro wrestler, right? And he was able to beat a lot of old school opinions, considering his look, his style, and things like that. And he was and just proved himself to be right, that he was, and the guys that believed in him, that he really, really had what it takes to be a great. And he's a great. He's one, and to me, he's up there with the Steve Austins and the Rocks. He's up there with them. I wholeheartedly believe he's up there with them. As far as our generation, period. But I mean, just our generation's contribution to that greatest of all time list. And I took that as he believed so much in himself that he went after it and didn't let anyone tell him. Like, he refused to believe that he couldn't have it. And and I was brainwashed. You know, you get brainwashed a little bit there. Everyone does. You know, then there's the politics, there's the racial politics and all of that. And I was just kind of brainwashed to think, well, I certainly can't ask for anything. I can't, you know, go after anything, you know, blah, blah, blah. And truth is, yeah, that may be true, but that doesn't mean I can't still go after it. And what I got from that is, if I believe in myself enough, then I'm going to go after it. And if they look at me crazy, then I'm going to make that fuel me even more. And did I ever? And it just, Vince would do his promo classes. I would interrupt his promo class. I would literally interrupt Vince McMahon in front of everyone in the locker room and shut down promo class. And honestly, it was kind of inspired by CM Punk just asking me a simple question. Why didn't you ask? Like, why would you not believe in yourself enough to ask if you can have a match on the biggest pay-per-view in the entire business? But, you know, but you get what I'm saying. You know, it's,
Yeah.
I get it. You know, I totally get it. You know, I've seen him once or twice since, but I've never got a chance to tell him that I appreciated that. And I don't know if he meant for it to be that way, but I took it that way. And I, you know, and I understood where he was coming from as far as he believed in himself so much that he refused to let anybody tell him he couldn't become the CM Punk he became. And why couldn't I? And the fact that he would say that, you know, why couldn't I? You know, a black guy, period, whatever, you know, and I don't get into identity politics, but, you know, the truth is the truth. Why couldn't I? You know, and I appreciated that big time.
Wow, that's such a cool story. That's great.
I appreciate
it. I guess a lot of the point of the lockdown sessions is we're talking about society and everything, the crazy world that is right now. Can you kind of let me, what have you been doing during this crazy time? I know you're still wrestling, but what did you do during this? Now we're locked down. What did you do to keep yourself from going insane and stay close to the business and workouts? What can you give us an insight?
Sure. The beauty of it is that I've been insane before a few times, so it was nothing new. I mean that literally and figuratively. I have been insane before. Yeah, so I'm a competitive powerlifter, and I have fallen in love with that over the past 5 years, and that's definitely been a great way to counteract all of the damage pro wrestling has done to my mind and my body, you know. And that entrepreneurship, I'm a recording artist. I've been doing that for a very long time. Just developing some entrepreneurship. I have a t-shirt store, pro wrestling tee, so I was kind of waiting for the right time to start advertising. I've actually had it since like 2013. I just haven't advertised it because I just didn't have a reason to yet. You know, just, you know, different things like that, and a couple other things I have in the works that'll start being announced at the end of the year. But mainly just the powerlifting, just kept myself mentally afloat with the powerlifting. And, you know, I'm a Christian, so, you know, a lot of Bible study, things like that. And that's just what I believe in. And yeah, man, I just kept myself from going too crazy, you know.
Right. You know, and if you, I don't know how it was by you, but at least here in Wisconsin, if I would have had the 2020 vision foresight, I would have bought a whole bunch of free weights and sold them on Marketplace because they were going for ridiculous amounts of dollars. So,
of course.
Last, my most important question, because man, I could talk to you all day, and hopefully we can do a part 2 because this has been awesome.
I would love to. I would love to.
My final question is, and what I do is I try to be courteous to the people that are going to be listening to this, because I say, if nothing else, my YouTube sessions here will at least put people to sleep at night sometimes because I talk. How do the fans watching this, what are your fans' social accounts? How can they follow you? If you're ready to release, where do they look up for your T-shirts or any merch? Or I'm going to pause that question right there. Recording artists, do you have any stuff out right now? Or not yet?
I do, actually. I know I do. I do actually have like 5 albums on like iTunes.
Where's my iTunes? Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so I can be reached at Monster Tarver. That is my Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I have a fan page, TikTok. Actually, I have a TikTok. Yeah, I know.
Is it Monster
But
Tarver on TikTok?
yeah, it's kind of funny. I don't do dances. I don't do the funny dance. Honestly, I use the TikTok to promote my music, and that's really it. Honestly, that's it. But yeah, you'll never see me do funny dances. Yeah, Monster Tarver at Monster
I'm
Tarver.
looking it up right now. I gotta say, I don't do any of the dances either. I created the TikTok just to follow wrestling travel. So what I
Nice.
did is just all I do is put the wrestling clips that I have on my phone to whatever
Right.
music I can get on there, and I'm
Yeah.
nearing 15,000 followers for some stupid reason.
Wow, that's
So
amazing.
I JC at WT, I just followed you. So
Well, I will follow you back. You got it.
we might be friends here once in a while here, but that'll be great. Yeah, no idea why it's got so much, but I'm glad it does. I don't know if what that translates into the real world, but
That's okay.
we certainly so follow Monster Tarver on TikTok and everything.
Yeah.
Support things, and I hopefully have you. Are you in Cleveland or in Ohio right now?
No, I'm in Florida.
Florida has Florida has started to do some indie shows, right? A little bit.
You know what's funny? Yeah, I've actually seen some flyers pop up, and I've seen some footage of like maybe one or two small, very small shows. Oh my God, I guess people are starting to do shows. So, great. And I mean, I had a lot booked this year. I mean, for me, because my wrestling has slowed down, but I had a lot of international, a whole lot of international booked. Almost it was getting close to about a dozen international bookings this year, which would have been a big year for me. And yep, all shut down. But you
Unfortunately.
know, yeah.
You have anything booked in the United Kingdom where we're kind of from here?
Actually, yeah, I was supposed to come to England this year. That was one of the places I was supposed to go was to England. I'm not sure exactly where. I'm guessing London or somewhere in or around London. But yeah, England was one of the places I was supposed to go later in the year. But
Hopefully,
I'm guessing that'll
everything
be.
gets Hopefully, when we get back to normal here and get crowds, we can see you wherever. So I cannot thank you enough for joining us. Like I said,
My pleasure.
we're going to do part 2. We're going to be TikTok pals.
Yes.
We're going to be a
Yeah.
wrestling travel thing. So, Monster Tarver, thank you so much for joining us today.
My brother. Thank you so much, man.